All right, talking about a loss today is not really anything that would have shocked me. If you would have told me that the Texans were going to lose the game in Green Bay on Sunday with a depleted defense, no Nico Collins, and all that, I wouldn't have been shocked. It's a good football team. It's actually perhaps a really good football team, really well-coached team. And a loss, it wouldn't have been the most shocking thing. But the manner in which the Texans lost the game, even though it required a last-second field goal, I think that's what has a lot of people frustrated, a lot of people baffled, and a lot of the problems that people have been talking about all season long lingering around and continuing. It is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. Let's just start right off the top, Cody. Biggest takeaways from the loss in Green Bay, the good, the bad, the ugly. Take it away, my friend.
The biggest thing for me about this game is the Texans came into this week of NFL football number 2 in the AFC. And they left this weekend of football number 2 in the AFC. But you don't feel like they're anywhere close to the second best team in the AFC. And some of the things that showed up in this loss, and again, it's a loss to an NFC team that has no tiebreaker implications pretty much whatsoever. So in the grand scheme of things, 17 games at the end of the season, it may not matter as much. But there's so much stuff from this loss that could be not only just an issue in the short term, but could be an unfixable, broken element of this team for the rest of the year that could keep you from going anywhere close to where you want to go as a team and as an organization. That's what's most disappointing from this performance. You can live with one little bit here or there, or a lull or a stretch in a game, but to just show up and to just be wholly shredded by basic defensive principles as this offensive line, that's terrible. To yet again come into a second half and have the offensive coordinator so dedicated to what happened on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday that he can't figure out that they can't keep doing that on Sunday is horrible. Like, there's so many things from this game that could be long-term issues that the loss in the grand scheme, statistically, it doesn't matter as much, but how you feel and what you saw in this loss is so scary for this Texans team that it's going to be an issue in so many different ways going forward against whoever the opponent is. It doesn't even have to be one of the better NFC teams. That's where I'm at with this Texans team. To go out there and have this performance from the offensive line against, look, this is a fine Green Bay Packers defense. Like, it is not an amazing Green Bay. Like, Reggie White is not on this Packers team, but they looked like they had 4 Reggie Whites against this team.
Can I have a moment of silence, please? I need to mourn. And I need to say, RIP to the excuse that this offensive line wasn't healthy last year. Because I think this offensive line might be worse than the depleted one that they had last season. And that is saying
not might
hell
be
of a lot.
Not might be. They are.
So
they are.
That the Green Bay Packers, next generation stats, I just saw John Crumpler tweeted this out. They blitz less than 20% of the time. It was closer to 15% than 20% of the time. They pressured CJ Stroud nearly 50% of the time. So the notion and a lot of the hope for this offense was, well, the offensive line was beat to crap last year. You had a record-setting amount of injuries. And this goes back to the old college notion I have where a crappy-ass team returns 18 starters, and you see in the preview edition, the old school preview editions or the ESPN preview, it says they return 18 of 22 starters, and this Texans offensive line is healthy. You had half your starters out on defense. The best receiver in the game this season was out, and you had a healthy offensive line, and the offensive line and the offense was what prevented you from winning a game that you were relatively in control of at the end. That is atrocious. That is pathetic. So let's just mourn it. Let's pour it out for this notion that this offensive line being healthy was somehow going to mean something. And here's the other question I have, and we appreciate you joining us here on SNL Reaction Monday. I'm Landry Locker. He's Cody Stoots. Subscribe to both of our channels. We'll both be at practice today. We will talk to Bobby Slowick on Thursday, and I can guarantee you he will be asked about the most dumbass display of coaching that I've ever seen in my entire life. We'll get into that. And it ain't about hindsight. It damn sure ain't about hindsight. So we'll get into Bobby Slowick in a second and that dumbassery that he displayed a couple miles from the house he grew up in. I wish he would have walked home with about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and we might be talking about something different. There was that tale there. He walked home because he was mad the Packers were losing. He should have walked his ass home the final 5 minutes of that game, and the Texans probably would have been better off. But this offensive line, it sucks. And what's the most frustrating thing about it is you always hear coaches say, next man up, next man up, next man up, next man up, next man up. If we had come on the air today and we would have said, man, that defense was just so depleted. They got their ass whooped. Those two linebackers that we've never really seen play significant snaps together, Hansen and Hewitt, they weren't ready for the situation. They weren't good. Those guys were freaking awesome. They get an A+. They get an A+. Oh, let's have another funeral. And a matter of fact, you might be glad this one's dead. Let's have a positive funeral before we continue this. Let's get a moment of silence real quick for concern about linebacker depth. That's dead too. You have a good linebacker room. You don't need to be worried about if Hansen and Hewitt are called upon to be there. So the notion that you have a good offensive line when healthy, that's dead. Linebacker depth being a concern, that's dead too. So we have a positive and we have a negative funeral from the Texans POV. If you would have told me they lost this game because maybe they missed Nico Collins, okay, I can understand that. He's one of the best receivers in the league. Maybe that's the case. That's not even the case. Nico Collins wouldn't have been able. Who knows what Nico would have been able to do in this game. They lost this game because the most pricey unit on the team, the offensive line, sucked, and it doesn't allow you to do what you want to do. It puts your quarterback in a bad position, and I don't think Bobby Slowick was good at all by any stretch. I don't know what the hell he can do, and this is the thing that I wonder. How does it get better? How does it change? What is the goal of this? Because I know that D'Amico's going to say we got to execute. I know that Bobby's going to say we got to execute. And Stoots, we'll have Cody Stoots wave the white flag on the offense in a second. But how does it happen? Is it a personnel thing? Is it a schematic thing? Is it a combination of both? Do they just think it's going to improve within? Because it ain't working. And Cody, I understand you want to wave the flag on the offense. Explain yourself.
Yeah, I'm waving the white flag because, and your question is a good question. It doesn't get better. These are not the five guys that can fix it. These are not the five guys that can get better. I no longer believe that there is a fix it for this offensive line. So now the other six guys on offense that go out there with this offensive line need to operate like they have a bottom five unit in football. So they need to game plan, they need to scheme, they need to execute like they have a bottom five offensive line in football. They need to go out there like 2018 Houston Texans where, hey, the offensive line can't block anybody, so we've got to figure out how to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands. We got to figure out how to get the quarterback on the move because there's nothing that has shown that these five guys are going to fix it, turn it around, and maybe it's an intestinal fortitude thing where these guys just got to really look in the mirror and change their approach each week and change their approach in the game. That's fine. I don't believe they can do it. I'm waving the white flag on this offensive line. They need to move forward like this is the biggest weakness on the team and that it's a bottom five unit in football because that's what it feels like it is right now. To have one of the highest paid left tackles in football, one of the highest paid right tackles in football, a top 20 paid guard in football, and a first-round pick and a second-round pick, well, you're a bottom five unit. With all that investment, you play like a bottom five unit consistently. Not only on the pass blocking side of things, they suck at run blocking too. Joe Mixon has to make something out of nothing every other time he touches the damn football. Dameon Pierce has had one clean run this season. He took it to the house. Like, guys are getting hit at or behind the offensive line, and thank God Mixon's tough as nails and one of the best running backs in football this year, or they'd be dead in the water. Like, this offensive line stinks. It's not getting better. They need to change the way they approach offense as if they have one of the worst offensive lines in football, because guess what? They do.
Well, and that's the other thing with the Slowick thing. Like the game plan itself, I don't know what the game plan should have been. I don't think it was good. I just think the end of the game was so bad that it doesn't matter what the hell the game plan was. And that was the dumbest display that I've ever seen in my entire life. And here's the thing. And this is what really ticks me off about Bobby Slowick is a lot of times we'll come on here and we'll talk about stuff that didn't work. And I don't really function in a world where it's based on results. In other words, if I can understand what you were thinking, even if it's not necessarily what I think, in most cases, I can sit there and I can say, okay, I get what coach was thinking here. I understand. But the problem with how dumbass that was and how stupid it was is I understand if you want to make Green Bay use their 3 timeouts. I understand if that's what you want to do, okay, go ahead. But you commit to that the first 2 plays, and then you run a play, an 8-yard sideline out or whatever the hell it was. And I don't even know if there were multiple reads on this. It looked like that was where they were going the whole time. Maybe he'll say there were more reads. I very strongly doubt that. But you run a play where even if the play works, the reward is you're turning a 34-yard field goal into a 26-yard field goal with one of the best kickers in the league and stopping the clock, so allowing them to keep their final timeout. And the risk is you're stopping the clock, which you would have done no matter what, and you're kicking the 34 instead of the 26, which you ended up having to do. So there is no way that makes sense, and that line of thinking makes sense from Bobby Slowick. And I don't know if Green Bay functions differently if they have a timeout. I would like to think that they probably do, but you were already committed to that. And you just kind of changed your mind as if Kaimi Fairbairn can't make a 34-yard field goal. And I don't understand what the hell that was. Like that play was basically ran as if they were at the 43-yard line and we're going to have to attempt a 60-yard field goal and didn't have any timeouts left. That's basically like, in that situation, you can understand the play because you're trying to turn a 60 into a 52. They were trying to turn a 34-yard field goal into a 26, in which there is no difference. So hindsight, all that crap, even if the play works, you're not doing much except moving up a field goal 8 yards, and you're stopping the clock after making them burn their final 2 timeouts. That's dumbassery. That's stupid. Yeah, like, and it comes after a timeout too, Cody. That's the other thing. Like, it's not like you had limited time. He sat there on the sidelines with his distributed ball cap and the play sheet, realized that it was 3rd and 15, realized that Green Bay had 1 timeout, realized he had one of the best kickers in the NFL that was about to kick a 34-yarder. And he said, all right, let's get 8 yards closer and stop the clock. Let's go, fellas. That's pathetic. That's the dumbest thing. That's one of the dumber things that I've seen a coach do.
I hated the whole operation out of the 2 minutes, but the point that you're drilling down on, and Matt LaFleur said after the game he operated differently because he had a timeout. He said after the game in his post game that he operated differently. Now, that's not exactly what he said, but you read the quotes, and he said, I didn't want to burn the timeout. I knew we could do this and handle pressure because we had the timeout. If we got knocked back, we wanted to try to get a little bit closer. They had a brand new kicker that they had to get to, but there's no win to that play. Like there's no benefit
unless you think 34 is out of Fairbairn's range and 26 isn't.
No, there's no benefit to it. Like, I mean, yeah, you're very tiny, which we know is not the case. Caveat would be the only benefit. There's no benefit to running that play. You needed to have that play end in bounds. You needed to have that play burn the last Green Bay timeout. It would have changed the way that they would have operated as an offense.
It also backs up what you did on the first 2 downs.
Yes, I didn't. I mean, they had the most telegraphed 2 runs in the history of mankind coming out of the 2-minute warning.
Well,
they very clearly were not worried about scoring a touchdown.
I didn't have a problem with it, but if you're going to throw there, like it would almost make more sense to take a shot at the end zone or throw it in the middle. Like if there was ever a time, I know Bobby likes sideline passes. Like if there was ever a time to run a sideways pass, if there was ever a time to run a sideways pass, it was probably there. I mean, that was the most idiotic display that I have seen. And I've watched Bill O'Brien at his worst. I've watched Lovie Smith, and I've watched David Culley. The clock management against New England was dumb with David Culley, and he didn't even really remember what he did. That meant
Bobby Slowick made anything that David Culley did look like Bill Walsh with the crap that he pulled at the end of that game. That was completely stupid. That was just stupid. Like, even in the best case scenario, that was completely stupid.
And it was a big, fat, disgusting cherry on top of an inability to adjust to what the Packers were doing defensively. Just I watch team after team deal with offensive line issues, like injuries, guys missing. I watch team after team deal with pressure and adjust. Like, they don't have any plays where CJ takes 2 steps and fires that sucker to Stefon Diggs. All they've told us up to this point is Stefon Diggs is one of the best separators in football. He can't put his feet in the ground, take 2 steps and cut inside and get open for a 4-yard pass. Like, why does everything got to be this long, drawn out, long developing thing? It felt very, remember how Bill O'Brien used to act like it was rocket science to be a wide receiver in his offense? Like, dude, take 2 steps, get rid of the rock. They're coming for you. Stop calling plays where CJ's got to take 5-7 steps to get back there to set the play up. Like, get the ball out of his hands.
Dude, it's not even, this was as simple as it gets though, Cody. Like, that's for me, like what you're saying right now is.
No, I'm telling you, it's an add-on. Like, it's a cherry on top.
No, I get it. I get it. It's an add-on. And I don't like the game plan. I don't know. I think we can connect everything to the offensive line. Like in 99% of the things we talk about. But the offensive line sucks at this point, so act like it. Like, we can all see it. We have eyes. Bobby, you have eyes. Like, we all see it. This offensive line is not great, not good, not consistent. Joe Mixon makes them better. We all see that. But I'm talking about just that 10 seconds. What you're talking about is like a much bigger issue
sure.
Than 10 seconds. That's the other 59 minutes and 50 seconds of gameplay. But in this situation, I mean, it could be as simple as take a knee. It could be as simple as move it to the hash mark that Kaimi Fairbairn likes.
Yep.
It could be as simple as dive up the middle. It could be as simple as sideways pass. If you want to get crazy, it could be as simple as throw a slant or take a shot at the end zone. Because if it gets in the end zone, at least they have to score. It could be as simple as get the first down. First down ends the game. But in that situation, you're trying to pick up 8 yards and you're trying to stop the clock to turn a 34-yard field goal with one of the best kickers in the league into a 26. Even the ultimate result was stupid.
Yeah.
It is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. Let's rank the blame, though. The offensive line's number one. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. The offensive line, the main reason you lost this game, the main reason you're going to lose games moving forward, the main reason that this team will be fighting an uphill battle regardless of what the injury report looks like, is the offensive line. So we agree with that, right? I don't want to speak for you, but I would say that we can. I'm going to have you give me the 5 things that you blame the most for this loss. I'm assuming, spoiler alert, that it's the offensive line that's at the top.
Offensive line is indeed number one. Absolutely. Number one with the bullet, bold, underlined, not allowed to edit this portion of the document.
Okay. Offensive line is number one. Okay.
Number one.
Then what?
One. I put D'Amico number 2. I put D'Amico Ryans number 2. And the situation that you're talking about, the 3rd and 15 that we just went through, the final offensive play that the Texans ran, that's allowed to occur because the head coach doesn't walk over there and say, make them burn the timeout. Like, make them burn the timeout, Bobby. Make them burn the timeout. That's a disappointing element of what D'Amico Ryans brought to the table. And then I'm putting 6 points right on D'Amico Ryans because they have a pass that looks like a backwards pass.
You thought it was backwards?
Let me get there. They have a pass that's a backwards pass. I didn't think it was a backwards pass, but they should have challenged it or called a timeout because D'Amico Ryans is jumping all over the place trying to signal to someone. I'm assuming D'Angelo Ross or the secondary. He's jumping on the sidelines, and at that moment, use a timeout. Use a timeout or throw the challenge flag because it was close enough to at least these officials are bad sometimes. You might get a little luck. At the very least, you get a timeout to kind of reset that defense because you didn't like the look of the defense because you're jumping up and down, you're trying to yell at somebody. Next thing you know, one of their backup receivers is catching a touchdown on D'Angelo Ross. It's like I'm putting a little bit of this on D'Amico. I'm putting him ahead of Bobby because he allows the Bobby stuff to happen. Okay, so he's number 2 on my list. Is D'Amico? Where's D'Amico on your list?
He's not. I didn't. First of all, I didn't think it was a backwards pass. And I actually think that there's contagious dumbassery when Tony Romo talks, where he says stupid stuff, and all of a sudden they got to bring Serator in, and there's like some sort of like beep in a Serator's ear where they say, "Okay, we know he's an idiot, but at least humor him." I didn't think it was a backwards pass at all. So I didn't even understand that. And I see D'Amico jumping up and down a lot on plays that work. That's just kind of what he does. So D'Amico's not even on my list. My number 1 is the offensive line, but D'Amico's not on my list.
Okay.
Even like not even there. His defense played their ass off. The linebackers, which is his specialty, played their ass off. I don't even have D'Amico anywhere near my list.
Okay. I mean, he's the head coach. He decides how they operate out of the 2-minute warning. And, I was disappointed with how they operated out of the 2-minute warning. I'm really disappointed with how they operated on 3rd down.
All right. What's number 3?
Number 3 is Bobby Slowick.
Okay.
We've gone over the what was wrong and how poorly he operated and how he just can't. You heard we've all heard the Mike Tyson quote. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. You know what the addition to that quote is? What's next to that quote?
What?
Tyson then says, "Then like a rat, they stop in fear and freeze."
Ooh. Ooh.
Slowick just gets stuck on stuff that's not working, and he keeps doing it. He just gets stuck in games. The in-game adjustment from him is just, it seems to be not possible. They get stuck on what they've worked on just Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and it worked in practice, and it's like, that's great. It's not working on Sunday. Don't do it anymore.
Just his 3rd and 15 would be second on my list. All right, what do you got next?
D'Angelo Ross. I mean,
really?
Jordan Love was perfect. He had a perfect quarterback rating when he targeted D'Angelo Ross. You can't make one play. You can't make one play. Like I know he's a backup. I know he's a career backup. I know he's filling in for a guy that has.
Some would say he made a play, but they called it a catch at the end of the game. By the way, which turned a 51-yarder into a closer field goal. Some would say that wasn't a catch.
Yeah, it looked like a catch to me, and they review it on on the fly. So
yeah,
but he can't make one play.
What do you expect from D'Angelo Ross?
Landry, one play. I expect one play. Love was perfect when he threw the ball at him.
Yeah, and I
didn't one play. Don't get smoked by one of the backup wide receivers on 3rd and 8.
I didn't expect a lot from him, so I didn't really put him up there. But I get what you're saying. By the way, did you see Jordan Love yesterday after the game where he went? I think it was on his Instagram.
Where did he go?
He went shopping, dude. Apparently, he hates TJ Maxx. He's more of a Ross guy.
I was wondering where this was going. Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. He's a backup. You have low expectations. I'm not asking for the world. I'm asking to make one play.
Okay.
Force one incompletion.
That's fair.
Okay. Romeo Dobbs got him twice. Bo Melton, whoever the hell that is, got him on 3rd down and just, ate his lunch. Dontavian Wicks got him for the touchdown. So, he's number 4 on my list.
Okay. Number 5.
I actually didn't have a number 5.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I'll add a number 5. And I think this guy's just a beloved guy that we like to give a lot of praise to. And I feel like he's talked about with kid gloves, and I like him as much as you do, Tank Dell. Everybody's talking about this D'Amico Ryans non-challenge. I don't think it ends up getting reversed. I think Tony Romo's dumbassery rubbed off on a lot of people. Nobody watched that and thought it was a backwards pass. You saw where the arm was. I didn't think it was a backwards pass, but I think Tony Romo's. We talk about Joe Mixon's contagious alpha male competitiveness. I think Tony Romo's dumbassery is kind of rubbing off on people, including you, with putting D'Amico Ryans at number 2, quite frankly. And a lot of people will say that cost you 6 points. You want to know what cost you 7 points? Very first drive of the game, after Neville Hewitt gets an interception, Tank Dell drops a touchdown. Who knows how much different things look, but Tank Dell drops a touchdown in the end zone. I would put Tank Dell on the list. Tank Dell yesterday, he had probably 17 jawing matches with Green Bay DBs, and he had 0 catches. Tank Dell had 0 catches yesterday, and he dropped a touchdown. That's 4 points right there, right off the top. And oh, by the way, you started out that drive at the 11-yard line because of what Neville Hewitt did, and Jalen Petrie, give him credit for tipping it. Tank Dell dropped the pass. Very next drive, the Texans are in field goal range, and the offensive line, we go back to the offensive line gets sacked out of field goal range. That's 7 points right there. Like, we're sitting here talking about this imaginary backwards pass and all that. The Texans right off the top immediately at Lambeau Field, they should have been up 10-0. Instead, they were up 3-0. That right there will cost you games. So I put that. Here's the other thing that I found real confusing. We talked about Dalton Schultz and potentially getting Dalton Schultz loose. And early on in the game, I think it was the second drive of the game.
Yep.
Dalton Schultz has a 28-yard reception. Here's a couple things about that 28-yard reception. First of all, that was his only reception of the game. We never saw Dalton Schultz catch another pass. Maybe he was having to help back in the offensive line, and the issues on offense, as they often are, can be connected to the offensive line. You know, that one catch was enough to lead the Texans in receiving. Dalton Schultz led the team in receiving because of his one catch, which came on the second drive. That same exact drive, Cade Stover had a 15-yard catch. The tight ends on that drive, they combined for 43 yards of receiving. You know, that's the second most productive day receiving yards wise for the Texans tight ends. The most yardage combined that the tight end position has had this year was 61 yards against Jacksonville. On one drive, the second drive of the game, Dalton Schultz has a 28-yard catch. Looked pretty easy to me, by the way. That was probably the easiest looking play that I saw. We didn't see him catch another ball. Same thing with Cade Stover. So maybe not taking advantage of what went on early, not taking advantage of getting a field goal when you can get a field goal because of the offensive line, and Tank Dell being more worried about getting in a shouting match with Green Bay DBs and not catching the ball. That factored in a little bit more, I think, than that D'Amico challenge.
And what did we talk about on Friday when it came to tight ends? The Packers are susceptible to tight end success based on the past 2 games.
We saw it.
And we saw it, and then Bobby put it away in the box to never be used again. You know, so Dalton Schultz got one more target after that in the entire game. You got one more target after that one. Cade Stover never got targeted again.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was awful. It is SNL here, Reaction Monday, Landry Locker, along with Cody Stoots. So I want to give out some game balls, and I want to give out the rotten cheese balls. We've already given out the rotten cheese balls. I think Bobby Slowik gets a rotten cheese ball. Tank Dell gets a rotten cheese ball. Offensive line, y'all probably want to. I'm not even giving y'all cheese balls. Y'all eat enough. So y'all just go run some old school gassers. Go run some stadiums. They get the rotten cheese balls. You want to give D'Angelo Ross a rotten cheese ball. I don't expect much from D'Angelo Ross. Eric Murray had a terrible series where he could have had a tackle that would have ended the series, and then he got a 30-yard pass interference. So he wasn't that great. And I think that's about it in that area with the rotten cheese balls. Game balls. Neville Hewitt, hell of a football player. He is a really, really good football player. Only negative that Neville Hewitt had, he had the suplex. He went from the running suplex to more of a traditional suplex. I kind of felt like he got a little bit punished just for being in the weight room. Kind of felt like that could have gone either way, but I get it. But nonetheless, an interception, second straight week, he led the team in tackles. Neville Hewitt, you get a game ball. Jake Hansen, same thing. We didn't expect a lot from you. You don't even, in a perfect world, to the defense, you don't even step on the field. You get a game ball. Matt Burke, D'Amico Ryans, you guys can share a game ball for y'all's effort on defense. Y'all did a really good job. And then Joe Mixon, I mean, good Lord. I don't know where this team is without Joe Mixon yesterday. It might have gotten ugly. You get one in the final one, Frank Ross, your special teams, A+. This was the special teams effort that we were waiting for. We've talked about in victory how the special teams coulda, woulda, shoulda cost them a game. There was the punt block against Indianapolis, in which the Colts got a free 7 points. There was the muff punt against Jacksonville by Steven Sims, in which the Jags got a free 5 points. There were some bad punting displays by Tommy Townsend. And we talked about how Frank Ross's elite special teams hadn't been elite. Yesterday, that was kind of one of the keys to the game. They wasted an elite special teams effort in every sense of the word. That third unit, that third phase, that complementary football, that final piece of complementary football was beyond solid. Ka'imi Fairbairn, perfect. Tommy Townsend, great job punting. Dameon Pierce, longest kick return of the season, which led to a 52-yard Fairbairn field goal. The coverage was great. There was a couple of awkward moments with Des King where it looked like he almost fumbled at the end of the second quarter. He was able to hold on to it. And then the one that went over his head, I don't know that I need to. Matter of fact, Tank Dell, go return punts. I mean, you don't play like a guy that is really, really good at receiver. And quite frankly, this coverage that we talk about, this deep coverage, I think Diggs and Collins can function in it. It might impact Tank Dell a little more than we think. Like the deep safety look might have the biggest impact on Tank Dell. Put him back there and let him return punts, but no harm, no foul with the Des King. MJ Stewart, don't know what the hell you were doing there. You kind of scared me a little bit, but no harm, no foul. A+ for the special teams. Final game ball goes to Frank Ross. That was a hell of a performance by the third phase.
Yeah, they traded punts there, third, fourth quarter, and good coverage. Townsend had one touchback, but the defense did their job, and good coverage, okay returns at times. You didn't feel like it was, Steven Sims back there where you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So special teams did a good job.
Yeah, they did really, really well. And
the effort
was wasted.
You talked about these wide receivers, Landry. Why can't any of these guys get open on a CJ Stroud scramble?
They're not getting open. Like that there's a lot of times where the play is like CJ has to extend the play. I don't know. I really don't.
Like is that something that just
that was a good secondary, but I don't know.
Is that something that just Nico is just that much better than Stefon Diggs and Tank Dell at that? Like when CJ extends the play, Nico Collins knows what to do, knows how to operate. Because like we hear nonstop about how good of a separator Stefon Diggs is, and I get that when the offensive line's playing as bad as they are playing, that the timing gets thrown off and stuff like that. But the scramble drill should be far more successful than it is. When Stroud's buying time and nobody's getting open, like what's going on there? Is that Stroud rolled out the wrong way? Can't imagine that's the case. Like he's got to get out of the pressure however he can get out of the pressure. Like why can't one and why can't three go out there and beat those guys when they got to cover for? We hear this all the time. Like you can't cover for 6 seconds. Like okay, well, it seems like Green Bay actually can.
I think a lot of times maybe they do get slightly open, but CJ's just running for his life so much. Like there's some plays where the initial guy just gets through and CJ's basically running full speed and can't even stop and look. Yeah. The pressure is so bad. So I really don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But it does feel like Tank Dell, Stefon Diggs, Hutchinson, these guys are having trouble getting open. And I don't know. Muhammad said CJ isn't a good scrambler. I don't know that I agree with that. I think he's pretty damn good at improvising. Yesterday, I wondered if the one on the sidelines.
He damn near willed him to victory with his legs there on that final drive.
Yeah, I thought that maybe he was going to get the juice flowing when he kind of lowered his shoulder and picked up that first down when they needed a field goal to take the lead. So I would disagree that he's not a good scrambler. Quite frankly, I think the offensive line actually performs worse than the box score even shows. I don't know how many sacks CJ Stroud avoided yesterday, but it feels like he could have damn near been sacked 9 times yesterday, and he was able to avoid it. The other thing about this game that was kind of frustrating was there's a lot of times where we talk about CJ Stroud and we talk about okay, well, even though it looks bad for 3 quarters or even though it feels helpless, like he finds a way to come through in the clutch and make the play when you need it. They pissed away the play of the game yesterday. They just completely pissed away the play of the game that was big for a number of reasons. But the last play before the 2-minute warning, you had CJ Stroud pressured, probably should have been sacked. He rolls out and he throws an absolute dime to Xavier Hutchinson to move the chains and take it down to the 2-minute warning. And after that, the Texans decided, okay, we're going to make Green Bay use their final 3 timeouts until they didn't. And then we had the 3rd and 15 disaster. I know some people might have wanted to try to score. Some people say you don't score too early. I don't look at Jordan Love as a guy where it's like, oh, you left too much time on the clock for him. But I do. I had no problem with the actual approach of trying to end the 3 timeouts. But it is kind of wild. It's kind of ironic that you essentially you took the ball out of CJ Stroud's hands after his best play of the game. And on 3rd down, perhaps your most consistent weapon. I would say that, like, of all the Texans that have a chance at being all pro this year, Fairbairn's got to be near the top, right? Like, if we're talking about all pro caliber performances, I'm not paying attention to other kickers. I would assume that he's at least in the discussion, right? Like Fairbairn?
Yes.
You basically say, hey, 34 yards, we got to get closer for that. So your two most important weapons when it comes to scoring points, I'll put it that way, outside of Joe Mixon, but your two guys, your two elite guys, and Joe is elite, and you're not really trying to score with Joe in that situation either. You're trying to kill clock. You basically took the ball out of CJ's hands, which is fine. If you're going to make him use the timeouts, make him use the timeouts. And then you basically said Fairbairn 34 ain't enough. We got to get closer. But I thought that play was awesome to Hutchinson.
The Hutchinson play is incredible because the box score tells you it's an 11-yard pass on 3rd and 10. It's nearly a 20-yard pass from where he throws it. Like, he throws it on a rope 20 yards down the field. Jair Alexander's covering Xavier Hutchinson, by the way, their best defensive back. And it's perfectly placed. Hutchinson gets the 1st down, and you go to the 2-minute warning. And then you can do whatever the hell you want out of the 2-minute warning. And they decided to run basically the same run play back-to-back times left. And then that weird 3rd and 15, pass play. And I thought to myself, surely they're not going to try to put this thing in the air on 3rd down. But they did. They did.
Well, the other thing about it is that in hindsight, it almost would have been better off if Hutchinson hadn't caught it with the way stuff went down. I mean, maybe you just stop Green Bay and use your 3 timeouts, and then you have. I don't know. I mean, that's not true. But what happened after that was just astonishing, and about as moronic as it gets. When it comes to watching a football coach try to function.
Damn it, Bobby.
Terrible. Just absolute terrible display by Bobby Slowick. Just awful.
It makes no sense. And to your point, like that, like, it's not like that was a decoy route to get them something, easy over the middle where they were for sure going to complete it. It just doesn't make sense to put the ball in the air there. Force the final timeout to get used, kick the field goal, and put it on your defense, and hope that they get it done. Which
Gustavo says it was the Ravens game, and Gustavo is obviously swarming the super chat.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
It was the Ravens game all over again. Won't make it far in the playoffs again if this continues. The Ravens game, you had the punt return touchdown by Steven Sims, and then they just kind of wore you down in halftime. I don't think it was the Ravens game because I don't feel like you were ever in control of the Ravens game. And I can't point to like one thing to say, they should have done this differently against the Ravens. I almost felt like they were just kind of outmanned. In this game, despite being shorthanded, I think Green Bay is a hell of a football team. I'm not trying to take anything away from Green Bay, but even with that said,
I didn't feel like the Texans were outmanned. Now, I will say this. Bobby Slowick can't hold Matt LaFleur's jock. That is like, I mean, that was probably like, you talk about D'Angelo Ross and the perfect QB rating against him. If we just take, and I know that they don't go against each other head to head, but if we take Matt LaFleur and Bobby Slowick and we talk about that is as unfair as Mike Tyson versus Urkel in the 90s. Like that is an absolute beatdown, assault, because Bobby Slowick can't hold his jock.
Oh, if you swapped play callers yesterday, the gap is enormous.
I think if you swap quarterbacks, even I know CJ was bad, but I think even quarterbacks. I think that just the way in which they protect and the offensive line and all that is an absolute mismatch.
Gustavo said it felt like the Ravens game. I mean, it felt a little bit more similar to the Falcons game, where you were disappointed with the offense. Now, they were able to put a bunch of field goals on the board, but they still came up short. It was disjointed. You know, they didn't CJ Stroud didn't connect, but ultimately he had the big one late to Schultz to go ahead. And then the defense couldn't keep the field goal off the board. You know, that was Desmond Ridder. This was Jordan Love and a much better offense, but it felt closer to the Falcons than the Ravens.
Jesse says, shout out to Neville Hewitt, aka Black Lesnar. Black Lesnar. Okay. I might have to go with that. Black Lesnar. I'm going to run that nickname by him. I think he might like it. Black Lesnar. For taking dudes to Suplex City yesterday. Hated the penalty. Loved this ever. My thing is this, like, I don't think he was trying to be dirty. I think he was trying to play to the whistle, and the whistle kind of came as he was moving back. It was almost a weight room penalty. Like, there's some penalties where you look at it and you say that was idiotic. I just felt like he was fighting till the end, and he happened to be lifting with all his might. The running back just stops resisting, and then all of a sudden, as soon as he stops resisting, that strong ass mofo just kind of suplexed him. I don't think he was trying to do that. I
didn't like the penalty. But the NFL, as soon as a guy goes airborne and lands on his head, those referees are throwing the flag. You know, they got to get there. They got to get the yellow out of their pocket. They got to be seen.
Lesnar, man. Black Lesnar. Goodness gracious. What a nickname there.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Very good. Very, very solid. It is Reaction Monday. Here, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots. So now we'll get to what you got next. You're going to have the Indianapolis Colts coming to town. Indianapolis 4-3. Pretty impressive job of them of kind of treading water and being 4-3, and they're just as banged up. We'll get to that a little bit later on. We're going to go through the key plays, an exercise. We'll summarize each drive throughout as well. We'll also get your comments, but let's go back to the offensive line, the most frustrating part of this thing. And Cody Stoots wants to play the offensive line swap. We're trying to figure out how this offensive line can get better. Is it a personnel thing? Is it a schematic thing? Is it both? But let's play the offensive line swap game here on Reaction Monday, courtesy of your boy Cody Stoots.
This all comes to mind based on the fact that they were playing 6 different offensive lines like the first 6 weeks of last year, and you know that they were terrible the first 2 weeks, and then you know they were very good that next stretch where they stopped allowing sacks and they were able to get things going. And I think back to last year, like sometimes it was just Damian Pierce's fault they couldn't run the football, not necessarily the offensive lines. And it's like, okay, if this offensive line's this bad and you're anywhere close to where I am, which is total wave the white flag, don't believe in them anymore. Like, what's left? Well, like what's left to do with the offensive line? It's put new bodies in there. It's swap some pieces out. And the first one that I feel like is actually, if there wasn't some sort of competition or at least a conversation about it, swapping out Kenyon Green for Kendrick Green would be the first thing I would try. Kenyon Green is just, I mean, lost sometimes. The amount of times where I see a player come through the interior of the offensive line and Kenyon Green's out there with his hand on nobody is maddening to me. It's baffling. And I know they love to run left. I know they primarily ran left yesterday, but he doesn't pass block well. There might be some success there run blocking. You just have to figure it out another way on the run blocking. He doesn't pass block well. Would you be in favor of a Kendrick Green for Kenyon Green swap?
Why not? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I don't think we would watch the game and say, "Damn, they really missed Kenyon Green." Hell, we watched them last year. We got people thinking that the offensive line last year was better. Kenyon Green was not out there, and neither was Titus Howard. I mean, that's essentially what you're saying. Juice Scruggs was at guard instead of center. But the offensive line at the end of last year, Tunsil was there, Juice Scruggs was there, Shaq Mason was there. The two new guys who are here right now, if we're to go to that we're not, are Titus Howard and Kenyon Green.
Yep. Now, the next one I would offer up is not something that most teams can do or would want to do. You wouldn't necessarily want to bench your center because there's a lot that you have to put on the center. There's a lot of communication that he's in charge of. The quarterback and the center have to have a good relationship. The Texans just so happen to have a guy that played pretty well at center last year and has a relationship with C.J. Stroud at the center spot. Would you be in favor of a Jarrett Patterson for Juice Scruggs swap?
No, I would not. We saw that. We saw that. It wasn't great.
Well, we saw it for one game.
Yeah, it wasn't fun.
Okay, I mean,
unless you want to put Scruggs at left guard and let Jared Patterson play center, I would be open to that. I don't want to put Scruggs on the sidelines. Like if you want to tell me that Kenyon Green goes to the sidelines and then Juice Scruggs moves over to the left side and Jared Patterson plays center, I would be open for that. But as far as just no Jared Patterson come in for Scruggs and then it's Patterson and Green, no, thank you. I've seen that.
Do you want to bench Titus Howard for Blake Fisher?
I wouldn't mind it. I think, and I think I don't know that there's a guarantee that it looks like good in the short term, but I think his arrow is pointing up as a football player, and I think eventually we're going to get to that point where he's a starting tackle. So I would not hate the possibility of going through the battle-tested wounds that come with a young offensive lineman and Blake Fisher, who's eventually going to get there, and putting him in front of Titus Howard. I would not be completely opposed to that.
I mean, it just I know that the play to the whistle finisher block is there with Blake Fisher. It's not there with Titus Howard, and Titus Howard doesn't move anybody in the rushing game. Part of the reason they don't run.
Sometimes he does. Sometimes he does.
Well, I know Fisher can move some earth out there. I mean, he's shown it in the time that he has been in there. So, I mean, I just don't know how you run the same 5 offensive linemen out there against the Indianapolis Colts when there's at least a worthwhile option at 3 of the spots. And if you want to have a conversation about benching Shaq Mason, I'll have that conversation too. I just wonder if they, because he's a veteran and they've paid him, that maybe they don't want to bench him. And Green has been worse at left guard, so you swap him out first. So, but I mean, obviously they're not benching Laramie Tunsil, so I mean he's going to stay at left tackle.
Yeah, and I also and they shouldn't. I also think that sometimes there's like a snowball effect on offensive line. I just don't know where the snowball starts. Like I mean, you can naturally say that 3 or 4 guys aren't playing well, but I wonder like if there's like a snowball effect where it's kind of, this guy, it's just hard for me to imagine that you can look at this if you're D'Amico Ryans or Bobby Slowick and say, okay, this is just going to get better within. Like every excuse that you've lined up for this offensive line is gone. Health. Okay. They're healthy. They don't seem that great. They haven't played together a lot. Well, that offensive line last year didn't play together a lot either. They weren't great.
Well, this team's like, screw that. They've played together enough. It should look better. Like they should have an understanding of who the guy is next to him and how well the guy plays. They spent all the training camp basically practicing together. And then once Tunsil was in there, then they had that for the last little bit of training camp that they've played this many games together. Now screw that. That's not an excuse anymore.
The offensive line is a problem. And the most discouraging thing about it is you've invested hell of a lot in it. Swarm in the super chat.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
979 H-Town fan. No contender has a spineless and brainless O-line like ours. I don't think you're alone in that notion. Gustavo again. The Texans need to throw the O-line to the media and media day so you can get questioned about their performance. We need answers. I don't know that they have answers, quite frankly. It'll be interesting to hear what D'Amico says today in regards to the offensive line. D'Amico is going to be positive, say we're going to be fine. That's just kind of his style. Coochie Main says, pretty sad that we had the only turnovers with 3 and still lost a close one. Yeah, I thought the defense gave you everything that they could give you. If we want to shift over from the offensive line, I don't know what more you could have gotten from defense. You hate D'Angelo Ross. I don't expect anything from D'Angelo.
That's not what I said. On the turnovers, Texans Cap tweeted this stat out.
Technically, right.
Past 14 years, teams with a +3 turnover margin won 94% of the time.
Oh my God.
94% of the time.
God. 94% of the time they won with 3 turnovers. Goodness gracious.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's
also
I
can't fathom why D'Angelo Ross is getting just a hall pass from you.
Because I don't expect anything from him, and he held up. Like, he held up as best as I expected him to. I don't have like big expectations for D'Angelo Ross. I thought he was going to get picked on. You got to hang in there. I mean, that's.
Well, people didn't have high expectations for Neville Hewitt and Jake Hansen. They went and made plays. Like, go make a play, dude.
Yeah, they're better players.
Jordan Love was perfect when he targeted him.
They're better players.
Go make one play.
They're better players, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. The defensive line can help him. Like, it's all that. I don't expect a ton from D'Angelo Ross. I thought he hung in there. I mean, that's where I'm at with him. I don't expect much from him. Is Des King out of shape?
Well, they've never trusted him to play outside here.
Yeah, that was stress. That was a stressful watch. Luckily, it was harmless. That was a stressful watch. Are you okay with the just let Tank Dell return punts at this point?
Yes.
It's not like he's doing anything at receiver. Like, just let Tank Dell return punts.
Yes.
And don't drop touchdowns either.
No.
How about that? Get back to the huddle.
I'll say this. You look really freaking silly as a wide receiver room when you're out there and you want to start something before the game.
I don't know that he started it.
No. As a wide receiver room.
Oh.
And you want to have you want to square off with the Packers all by yourself if you're Stefon Diggs, and you're Tank Dell, and you want to get up Jair Alexander every time the ball comes your way, and then the wide receiver room goes out there and let's see here, 5-6 catches for 34 yards. That's you look pretty silly. You look pretty silly. So, 2 years ago it was I finished it, Stefon Diggs. They finished it today.
They did.
Yeah, they finished it with they finished it on Sunday at Lambeau.
Sid says we'll get to the big plays of the game. We'll relive it and make some sense of it coming up at the top of the hour. Sid says we need to trade for a guard and a cornerback. Do you have any suggestions?
Look, the cornerback situation is going to get better here in a moment because they're going to get Kamari Lassiter back at some point soon. I mean, they didn't put him on IR, so they had to expect he's coming back soon. And then Jeff Okudah is going to come back off of IR at some point. Maybe the quarterback rating will be only 118 instead of 158.3 when he's in there. So they don't need to trade for.
That's even more reason why you kind of got to channel your expectations of Ross
because he's the backup.
He's like 4 to 6 on the cornerback depth chart.
Just one play. Like, I'm not asking for the world. I'm not asking for him to have a pick 6 to win the game. Just bat a fucking ball down. Just being in the same zip code as the guy when he catches the ball.
Do you
How
have
about
any,
don't fall down?
do you have any guard
then-
suggestions?
I'd call Cleveland every day. I would call Cleveland every single day and try to get one of their guards. Specifically Batonio, who is in the Xavier
They're done.
Su'a-Filo,
They're done.
who's in the Xavier Su'a-Filo class of 2014. Joel Batonio.
Okay. What's that, like a day 2 pick? Day 3, maybe even? I mean, you might be doing him a favor at this point. It might almost be like, look, Joe, we know you've done a lot for us. We're about to be in salary cap hell.
He's, you could probably pay them less and eat more of the contract as, like a little trade-off for him.
I saw some people saying that they need to call the Seahawks and see if George Fant's going to be back anytime soon.
Well, he was on IR last time I looked a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I haven't been paying attention. I know he hadn't played since week 1.
Yeah, so and again, what does Fant do for you? He can't play on the inside. It's so bad.
I think they're talking about Titus Howard.
Well, that's what Fisher's
that would
here
be
for.
Fisher. Yeah, I think Fisher would be the
Landry. It's so bad now. It's so bad now on this offensive line. Put Titus back at left guard and see if it works. Put Titus back at left guard. Put Fisher at right tackle and see if it works.
dude. That's the best idea that you've had.
See if it works.
No, that's the best idea that you've had.
Why is it the best idea?
No, because I don't even think about that as a possibility. That is the best idea that you've had.
Put him back at left guard and
Of
put
all the
Fisher at right tackle.
possibilities, we've thought about this. Titus made a big deal. Yeah, I'm only a tackle, not a guard. Of all the times to try to move Titus to guard, that might be the best idea that you've had.
That's how bad it is on the offensive
Cody.
line. I thought he sucked this guard.
Cody,
What?
that's the best idea that you've had, man. I'm saying
Thank
this
you.
100 times. That I'm in favor of this.
Well, I'd be fine seeing it.
Wow.
He actually had some moments where he looked okay pass blocking from the left guard spot.
He
Now,
shut down Chris Jones that one game. He did.
He
did. 2 years ago. He did.
Run blocking, it's not always looked great, but he's had some moments pass blocking at left guard where he's been okay.
Okay.
That's how bad it is.
That is a good idea.
I mean,
that is a good idea. Someone says Titus was a terrible left guard. Yes, he was.
How good's Kenyon Green?
That's the point. He can at least maybe it lights a fire under him. I like this. Jesse F on the super. What is the over-under on CJ Stroud and Sarah McLachlan collab asking people to donate to get him a new O-line?
From the eyes of an angel.
Is that the...
Yeah, that's the song.
Oh. Okay. All right. So it is hour 2 coming up here on SNL. Landry Locker along with Cody Stoots, the Houston Texans. They leave Green Bay. And the offense, you can make a case, never really showed up outside of Joe Mixon. So the Texans offense leaves the other 2 phases out to dry in Green Bay. You get an elite effort from a depleted defense. You get an elite effort from special teams. And who would have thunk it? Here we are, Reaction Monday, halfway home. We're talking about the Houston Texans offense and that expensive-ass offensive line leaving the team out to dry. I got to wonder what D'Amico is going to say about this offensive line today. I'm assuming he's going to say he still believes in them. I'm assuming he's going to say that it's all fine and dandy. But I do wonder what they are saying behind the scenes and if a change is going to come. We saw Jalen Petrie bench last year, right? We saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the decisions when it comes to the offensive line? What are you doing? You can't. It's got to be. You're saying Bobby Slowick needs to adjust as if he's functioning with one of the worst offensive lines in the league.
Yes.
Fair.
That's if they don't make a change, then they need to change the way they operate on offense.
Okay. And then there's other times where it just looks like they just line up and they just get their ass whooped. That's the crazy thing about it. There was one stunt where Dare Ogunbowale just had to slide over 2 feet and he would have been in front of the guy. There was one where Ogunbowale got, but they only blitzed it didn't feel like it. They only blitzed 18% of the time, 17% of the time, something like that, and were pressured 47%. So a lot of times it's not even stunts.
Yeah, well, and in addition to the pass blocking being poor, they got out physicaled in the run game a couple times too. Mixon had the really nice second quarter. He had 37 rushing yards outside the second quarter. I mean, he ran the ball 4 times for 7 yards in the third quarter. Like they got beat up on the ground too a couple different times. So and some of that success that Mixon did have is Joe Mixon making chicken salad out of chicken what, because he's got agility and vision and physicality. So it was a horrible offensive line performance all around.
Yeah, and I think at this point, and we had the funeral earlier today. You just got to accept this offensive line, like the health was not the problem last year. Like that was not it's just not good. So they gotta figure something out with that O-line sooner rather than later. You're going to face the Indianapolis Colts this week. Shane Steichen's coming to town. If you put together another performance like that, then things get completely interesting, and we're going to have to pivot. We're going to have to adjust the way we look at the squad, because right now we're kind of just like side-eyeing the AFC South. If Indianapolis comes in here, and the Texans are a 6-point favorite, so that's a pretty hefty favorite in the NFL. But if they come in here and kick your ass the way that the Packers did, then that changes a lot of things. Could I interest you in a game summary and summarizing the drives here on SNL?
Let's do it. You do this better than anybody else.
All right, so let's just start out right away. Green Bay drive number 1. This one will be labeled the Hewitt fills in drive. You had Dobbs immediately, and I know that you were terrified of this, but immediately you had Dobbs picking on D'Angelo Ross for 23 yards. And immediately it was very clear LaFleur is not the fudge pop OC with the New England Patriots. He saw D'Angelo Ross out there and he said, you know what? I'm going to pick on him. And this would end up being a theme throughout the game. I said it earlier, Jordan Love, he's not a TJ Maxx guy. He prefers to shop at Ross, and he picked on D'Angelo earlier on. However, 3rd and 3, that third down defense, Neville Hewitt with the interception, the assist to Jalen Petrie, and immediately the next man up mentality on display. Drive number 1, the Green Bay drive, Hewitt fills in. And I got to say this, Neville Hewitt is a hell of a football player. I actually look at linebacker depth as almost a strength when we thought it was going to be a weakness. So while the offensive line has continually plummeted, the linebackers, no Christian Harris, no problem. The coaching staff adjusts. No Azeez Al-Shaair, Henry Toto, or Harris, no problem. Drive number 1 was confirmation of that. Next man up. You look up next man up in the dictionary. It is the Texans linebacking group, a picture of them.
I do want to be critical of Neville Hewitt here on this interception. I mean, if he scores, they actually put a touchdown on the board, because Tank Dell didn't take care of his business. But, so you got to score when you get the opportunity, defense, all right, because the offense isn't helping you out.
And that's Houston number 1. I think the theme of that was Tank Dell. Tank Dell, he likes to talk. He likes to go back and forth with the DBs. He drops the touchdown. So it was a missed opportunity despite the turnover. That was the Texans drive 1. Drive 2 for Green Bay. An opportunity for momentum early. The Texans get them off the field immediately, and the Texans get the ball, and then the Texans drive 2,
tight end production with nothing to show for it. You get Dalton Schultz for 28 yards, his only reception of the game. He actually led the team in receiving with 28 yards. God, that's pathetic. Cade Stover, 15 yards, 43 yards, the second most productive receiving game for tight ends on the season, but you get nothing to show for it because of what? A DB blitz, and the Texans get taken out of field goal range. I wondered on this, and the theme of this one was tight end production with nothing to show for it. I wondered if that was something that CJ needed to see or what, because I think it was Diggs. You took Diggs in far left. He was he was there. You brought him in motion. The DB just sits there, and then the DB, I don't know if it's an adjustment because the wide receiver gets out of the way and you don't have to cover him. The DB just blitzes, and you get CJ Stroud, so nothing to show for it.
Nada, because they can't pick up a blitz that the whole Lambeau Field saw coming.
Then you had the king of the suplex, Neville Hewitt, just complete dissecting by Green Bay before, in fairness. You had Jacobs for 14, Dobbs for 11 against Stingley. Pretty tight coverage there. 3rd and 5, your guy, Ross Melton, catches the ball. By the way, you might say, who is Melton? He's a guy who just caught his 4th pass of the season. It was against D'Angelo Ross. Again, no TJ Maxx, all Ross for Jordan Love.
Put him in a damn blender when he caught the ball too.
Then, though, I do think that the linebacker physicality was on display, the good and the bad of it on this. So this was just linebacker smoke with the bad result. You had a corny ass reverse to Christian Watson, which Jake Hansen just completely recognized and knocked the hell out of him.
Then you had great job.
Then you had the Hewitt 15-yard penalty, and then the Kraft sliding catch, that guy's an underrated ass tight end. And that was all as the second quarter started. So on that one, you had the linebacker physicality, and that this was where I thought the game could have gone a number of ways, because
one thing about Kraft real quick. On that play. Kraft, their leading receiver in the season for touchdowns. So very good. Crazy what happens when you throw the ball to the tight ends.
Yeah.
And damn, I thought Kalen Bullock was going to catch that. You watch the replay.
It was a good effort, man. It was just a hell of a throw by Jordan Love, quite honestly. I thought he deserved a lot of credit for that.
That was a big boy throw, and he put it right where it needed to go. And I thought Kalen Bullock, you see the replay, and it's like, God, he was really close to catching that.
Drive 3, I put this in after 3 downs, after the Texans were punting. I thought you could kind of potentially see the momentum going Green Bay's way, and you wondered, okay, is this going to turn into the Vikings game where they just scored a touchdown, they stopped the Texans are about to punt? It was kind of the danger zone. So that's what I called this drive, danger zone. But I'll be damned. Green Bay with the muff punt, kind of a lucky bounce for the Texans. It hits Green Bay's leg. Frank Ross's special teams comes through. You get the rock, and then you got drive 4 for the Texans. Big opportunity, and they capitalize on it with that big mix energy. Joe Mixon into the end zone, and the Texans take the lead. And not only do they take the lead, they kind of weather the storm, because you could feel that Green Bay crowd, which, by the way, that atmosphere is effing awesome. You can feel it. It feels like a college game. Shout out to the Green Bay Packers. But you could kind of feel that momentum after they score the touchdown and stop the Texans. Texans get the ball, and shout out to the traveling Texans. You could hear Texans, quite a decent roar of the crowd from the Texans. So this was just a complete momentum swing where I think you took that first punch. It's almost like Mike Tyson coming out. We like Mike Tyson analogies here, but let's be honest, we're not dating ourselves. Boxing has sucked since Mike Tyson retired. If we're being honest, hell, the next fight I look forward to is that Netflix fight when he's fighting Jake Paul. So it's not really a dated reference, but Mike Tyson comes out swinging in that first, and you're up against the ropes. Then all of a sudden you get a jab in, AKA a fumble. And it felt like the Texans had basically took the early blow from the Packers. Pause.
Kadar Holman on that play on the punt return, he initially was on top of it, and he was initially on top of it. He did the splits. If you go back and watch it, he did the splits. He had his left foot fully extended all the way down. He had his right foot underneath him. And then ultimately, I think MJ Stewart comes up with the ball, but Holman gets collapsed on the football and then his teammates able to grab it. So it was a great job by the special teams unit, Kadar Holman, backup corner. Wouldn't have minded seeing him in there. And MJ Stewart, backup safety.
All right, let's get to the super chat, swarming it.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Amax says, guards suck. Bobby's playbook only highlights Nico as a star. Okay, that's a fair assessment by you, perhaps. So far in this game, we have the Texans unable to capitalize. You're up 10-7, but it almost feels like between the Tank Dell touchdown and getting sacked out of field goal range, it could be better. But you've also weathered the storm against a good football team, and you anticipate this isn't going to be easy, which takes us to Green Bay 4. I put shopping at Ross and Eric Murray ass. That was my summary of this one on Green Bay 4. Eric Murray was really bad on this drive. You had the missed tackle by Murray on 3rd and 3. This would have completely, I mean, you want to talk about momentum. You get that roar of the crowd for the Texans, and you get Green Bay off the field. Eric Murray did everything good, just got kind of juked by the reserve back. Tim Settle, he said he was going to knock helmets off. Tim Settle with a complete lick of the backup running back, and then he did the ball in, showed off a little something, Tim Settle. But then Eric Murray, after missing the tackle, he gets a 30-yard pass interference. You have the quote potential forward pass from Jordan Love. I didn't think it was. I think Tony Romo just kind of convinced people that it might have been. I didn't think it was. Maybe my eyes aren't good. Don't know. Didn't think so. And then you had Ross picked on Wicks TD. Green Bay takes the 14-10 lead back. That was the drive of Eric Murray.
I thought it was worth a challenge, and I thought D'Amico should have called a timeout when he was yelling and freaking out about somebody, and Ross get picked on that play for a 30-yard touchdown.
Watch D'Amico do that. He does that a lot, even on good plays. I think he's just very
animated.
Yeah. All right. So this one, special. This was a special drive. The special teams, give them credit for 3 points here, because Damian Pierce with a 42-yard return. Mixon and Diggs move the chains. Then Dare moves the chains. Kind of feels like you have a little bit something going. However, the Texans fall to 3rd and long, incomplete pass, but they do get a 52-yard field goal from Fairbairn to make it 14-13. So that was another example of special teams. And then you get the interception from Kalen Bullock. Green Bay Green Bay's 5th series. The title of this one, the theme of this one, back-to-back, as in back-to-back defensive rookies of the year, question mark. Are we looking at the Texans having back-to-back defensive rookies of the year with Will Anderson and Kalen Bullock, who now leads all rookies in interceptions?
Well, if Josh Lasseter was in the conversation before he got injured too, and now Bullock's playing as well as he is. I mean, stats will win you that award. I mean, he's 3 interceptions. He's tied for 3rd in the NFL.
Now, notice this in this game early on. You have the defense giving the offense short fields multiple times. You have special teams creating points. Drive 6 with some more of that big mix in energy. First 2 carries go for 35 yards. Then he takes it to the 4. Timeout after 40 seconds, and then a Mixon touchdown to give the Texans a 19-14 lead. And in this instance, it feels like this next defensive series where the defense has given you a short field multiple times. The special teams has led to points. It feels like this is the series where you've gotten a lot from the defense, but you want to get greedy and you want the defense to get the stop of Green Bay and take the lead into halftime, and that's what they do. Tim Settle with the sack.
Well, hold on. You skipped over the 2-point conversion.
Oh yeah, the 2-point conversion.
Let's talk about that real quick.
Okay, yeah, the 2-point conversion. So it's 19-14.
Yeah, so they go for they opt for the 2-point conversion attempt. The Diggs play gets a penalty called, and then they go with the most telegraphed run ever, and Mixon gets stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like the? I heard you say post game yesterday you didn't have a strong feeling one way or the other on this.
Here's my thing, and this is what I try not to do, and I try not to do in hindsight. I try to understand both sides of it, and I try to have
a firm understanding and grasp. There's different philosophies. Kyle Shanahan does not chase points early. That's not what he does. Some coaches do, but if you actually use hindsight and you look at what actually happened, the decision to go for 2 played out to where it was the right decision. Now, a lot of times it'll backfire, but if they would not have gone for 2 there, then they would have lost by a point, and we would be sitting there saying, or the math would have lined up to where they would have gone to overtime, is what I'm saying. Because if they hadn't gone for 2, you add a point, you still lose by a point. But if they make the 2-point conversion, then you end up actually being tied. So I philosophically, I don't feel strong about this. I have a lot of philosophical beliefs. I don't think you should use timeouts to save 5 yards. More times than not, that pisses me off. I think that's moronic, especially with how valuable timeouts are. I think you should run the ball at the 1-yard line more times than not. But for this, I just think it can go either way. But the way that it actually played out, outside of not making the 2-point conversion, it ended up being the right decision with hindsight.
I didn't like it at the time because you put yourself at a potential risk of being down 2 possessions at some point in the second half.
Correct.
If you kick the extra point, it becomes very difficult for the other team to put you down 2 possessions.
That is the other side of it, which I get. But I like philosophically, this is almost like going to an Italian restaurant and saying, do you want lasagna or do you want spaghetti? Like that's how I look at this now. Aaron says that's what lost us the game. I don't think Aaron can do math, because if you kick the extra point, you ended up losing 24-22. You lose 24-23. If you make the 2-point conversion, you end up being tied. So Aaron is not really functioning and actually looking at what actually happened. Now, philosophically, you don't agree with it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But that's not what lost the game. You got to perform basic math, and you will see, Aaron, I hope that is not what lost them the game. Actually making that 2-point conversion could have actually sent them to overtime.
So they go up 5. They don't get the 2-point.
That's not math, sir.
They go up 5. They don't get the 2-point conversion. If Green Bay puts 14 on the board, you're down 2 scores. If they go up 6, Green Bay puts 14 on the board, you could still get it all back in one drive.
Now on the other side of it, what you say could happen is right, and that's why I can understand the other side of things. Now, if you make the 2-point conversion, then I mean you're smooth sailing and you're up 7 points. So I agree. It's just not like, do you philosophically have a strong take on it?
I don't go for 2 unless I have to go for 2. That's kind of where I stand.
Damn, Aaron, I got to put you in timeout, brother. I mean, like you wouldn't have tied, sir. You add a point, they still lose by a point. Like,
I guess he's saying since they didn't get the 2-point conversion, they lost. That's not what lost them the game.
No, he's not talking about the execution. He's talking about the decision. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, some people say it's too early. I don't necessarily disagree. It's a philosophical thing that I don't feel strong about. Now,
it's one of those. It's one of those. I mean, it's to use the criticize the process, not the result.
Yeah.
If you want to be just totally results oriented, nobody really says anything if they get it. But it's the process that you got to be analytical
of. Green Bay on their 6th drive, you had a Tim Settle sack, and then Kalen Bullock was actually beat. But they ended up not completing the pass. I actually thought it was actually one of Jordan Love's best passes, perhaps a little bit of a break for the Texans.
That's the one that popped out of Reed's hands, right?
Yeah, it just popped out of his hands, but the Texans get the hold, and then the Texans get the ball. Desmond King damn near fumbles. But the Texans take it to the house with an opportunity to
one small question about that final Green Bay drive. When Settle gets the sack, was there any thought of using a timeout there?
No. Not with the way that offense was performing, no.
Okay. Yeah, because you haven't been able to get the ball going through the air. It's only been on the ground at that point. And with 30-something seconds, you don't have the ability to run the ball.
Yeah, no. So then you go to the half, and I'm thinking,
Damn, dude. And I'm doing what my dad used to do to me when we would go to games. And my dad would always say, you've heard what my dad would do to me when we went to games, right? Like what he would always say.
What do you say?
A lot of times it was during a Texas OU game, and Texas was getting their ass whooped during the Stoops era. But we'd be sitting at the state fair. We'd walk around at halftime. My dad would be like, if I would have told you that Chris Sims would have 13 yards passing and we would be down 9 points, you would have taken that, right? And I would be like, sure, Dad. Yeah, I would have taken that. The Texans had not even 50 yards passing from CJ Stroud, and they were winning the game. So going into that half, you think, okay, the Texans have seen what Green Bay's doing. They're going to regroup. If they get points to start out this second half, then it's smooth sailing. There's no way that the offense continues to play this way. Well, CJ Stroud on 3rd and 4 on the first drive, he gets sacked. So the theme of Houston's 8th possession is a missed opportunity because CJ Stroud gets sacked.
Yep.
Then Green Bay goes Jacob style. We saw Joe Mixon 50 yards on one of the Texans scoring drives. Josh Jacobs just completely annihilates the Texans defense. First, you had Dobbs versus Ross for 11 yards.
Shocker.
Jordan Love going back to Ross. Then Jacobs moves the chains. Then Jacobs for 27. Then Dobbs on Ross to inside the 10. Then Tim Settle all over a screen. Hell of recognition by Tim Settle, but it meant nothing because Jacobs finds the end zone. Green Bay takes the 21-19 lead. And this was interesting because LaFleur decided that he wasn't really interested in taking a 3-point lead. He elected to take the 2-point lead. So a little bit of a different philosophy, but it ended up actually playing well for Matt LaFleur. The differing philosophy with Nico played well for him.
Yes, if they go for 2 there, don't get it. Obviously, the game's much different there at the end from a number standpoint.
But that's what he decided to do. Then the Texans the offense continues to be ass. They don't do anything. But special teams thrive. Special teams had kept you in this game. They pin Green Bay inside the 5. They're giving the offense like all the opportunities in the world. And then Hewitt with the stick on 3rd and 1 forces the punt, but then same old theme. The ass offense continues. Mixon reception moves the change. You get Diggs for 17, but then say it with me, 3rd and 7, sack.
Mm-hmm.
Sack. Those 3rd down sacks, just absolutely crazy. Then the defense again steps up. Feels like you're in the danger zone. Like it feels like the defense was in the danger zone a lot, and they just kept stepping up. This time, Will Anderson, he gets the sack coming off the 3-sack game. Then the ass offense continues again. Stroud with a big physical run. You wonder, is this going to get him going? But then on 3rd and 11, he has to run out of bounds and basically run for his life. And then the defense holds again. Will Anderson before, this time Danielle Hunter, 3rd and 27. You put Green Bay in 3rd and 27, you force the punt, and the clock is kind of ticking for the Texans on offense.
You got at this point, you're feeling like, okay, how do they go about getting the points on the board here? Like they got to get something going.
Well, this is where it happens. And the title of this one was Heroics Wasted by Complete Dumbassery. The Joe Mixon long run into Green Bay territory. 3rd and 5, you get an offsides penalty. And then on 3rd and inches, Bobby Slowick decides to throw. He throws to Stefon Diggs. That moves the chains. Mixon moves the chains again.
Wait, so you are allowed to have a quick pass.
You are.
Okay.
Then on 3rd and 10, the play of the game by CJ Stroud, right before the 2-minute warning, Xavier Hutchinson catches the ball. The chains are moved. You get a fresh set of downs from the 17-yard line. So a 34-yard field goal. Actually, it was at the 12-yard line because you end up losing 5 yards on the first 2 carries. You make Green Bay use their timeouts. But then on 3rd and 15, the dumbest display of the season by a coach, by Bobby Slowick, you basically run a play where the goal is, it appears, to stop the clock and get 8 yards closer on a field goal while allowing Green Bay to keep their timeout. Just absolute silliness and absolute foolishness. And the Texans end up blowing it in the end, and the Green Bay Packers kick a field goal as time expires.
So here's a question I have about that last drive. And it's really it's maybe a defensive philosophical question. How come the Packers trust their guy to just play a couple yards off a guy and man him up, and the Texans don't trust Derek Stingley to do that? Late in the game, final drive, Stingley's got this big ass cushion. I thought he's supposed to be elite. Go out there and take that guy away, please. Why does he need this big cushion? His guy gets the reception. They keep the train rolling there in Green Bay. What's going on here?
Don't know, man. Don't know. But that's how it went down, dude. That's the summary. Richard on the super.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Why do our DBs? There you go. Right on cue. Why do our DBs play so off the receivers? We can't mix it up and play more press so our pass rush can swarm the QB. Diggs looks old and Tank fell off.
I mean, I get why D'Angelo Ross plays off, but Stingley shouldn't be playing off these guys, giving them these big cushions. Maybe he was worried that they're going to run by him like they did last week. And I get, look, I'm not going to sit here and act like Stingley's not really good. He is. And part of the reason is they don't ever throw it at him. It's when they do, it looks, curious.
No, they do.
They do
sometimes.
But I just wonder how many times, if we went back and we asked the opposing quarterback, how many times did you look over there and Stingley had his guy locked up? It's probably a lot. It's just fourth quarter. I don't know why. Romeo Doubs is fine. He's not a great wide receiver. I don't know why Derek Stingley needs to give him some big cushion. He gets 12 yards. They keep the thing moving.
Don't know. This one feels weird, though, because I think Green Bay is really good. It just feels like you got a maximum effort from 2 out of the 3 units and you lost the game. And the unit, even with Nico Collins out, the unit that was probably, there's always massive injuries, but the one that you can point to one guy being out. You shouldn't be dependent on one guy that much. That's the one that holds you back. So I want to ask you, how do you evaluate Bobby Slowick? Because he's the polarizing thing. On one hand, I get what you're saying, that you're frustrated with the game plan. But on the other hand, we're talking about how bad the offensive line is. So where do we go from there? What is Bobby Slowick handcuffed by the personnel? Does he just need to adjust? What is Bobby Slowick? What does he do outside of not having the brain fart that he had at the end of the game? What does Bobby Slowick do?
The ability to adjust in game to the pressure was not there yesterday. And we've seen so many times the in-game adjustments just not be there for Bobby Slowick. And he just gets paralyzed in what they've tried to practice all week. And it just keeps running that and that and that. We watch other teams go in there, and this is a much better defense than some of the other teams across the league played yesterday. But you watch teams lose things on offense in games, lose quarterbacks in games, and they can still operate. They can still move the ball, and they can still get quick passes off when there's pressure in their quarterback's face. The Texans they don't get this quick stuff off. And I get it's Jair Alexander and McKinney's good, and they're one of the best turnover forcing secondaries. But CJ Stroud can't take a 2-3 step drop, and Diggs put his foot in the ground and cut inside and get 5 yards on a slant. You got to run all these goofy, long developing plays when the offensive line can't block.
Yeah, I mean, it's so you're saying just basically quick passes and everything. That's how that's how the adjustment is going to go with the Texans.
Well, you got the game plan wasn't working. They had 44 yards of passing in the first half. They come out of the second half and can't move the football, can't run it or throw it. And he feels predictable too. Like do you remember the game? Did you ever play QB1, Landry? It's a bar game. They give you these big plastic tablets, almost not even a tablet, like big plastic game controllers, and you could press, run, left, short, or pass, middle, deep, and you'd guess and you'd get points. Usually on Monday Night Football. Bobby Slowick would be a gold mine for that game. Nobody plays it anymore because there's better ways to watch football. But Bobby Slowick would be a gold mine because run, left, short. First down, run, left, short. Third down, pass, deep.
See, the thing that I think is apparent for me, like as we talk about the trade deadline and we talk about options, is first of all, you're going to get Nico Collins back, so you're going to get one of your best players. So that naturally makes your offense better. So you're going to get the addition of Nico Collins, and that's going to make your offense better. The other thing that I've learned, and I almost feel like we should have all learned this as a group, and I think it's something that we're all seeing, is contrary to popular belief, the running back can make the offensive line better. And we saw it last year with Singletary versus Pierce. Like there was a clear upgrade there. And we're seeing it this year with Mixon versus anyone else, where and Mixon's on a different level. He's a different caliber of back. But I almost wonder, while we're sitting here talking about, trading for a guard or, trading for this position, maybe they just need to add running back depth. Like maybe they need to bring in a running back that maybe isn't getting enough opportunity and improve that position to where when Joe Mixon's not on the field, you can still run the ball. Or maybe that running back is capable of receiving out of the backfield and he's able to make plays. Maybe it's like a backup guy who can catch passes out of the backfield to where maybe that helps the offensive line and you're able to design that. Like I almost, and I know I'm like running back obsessive, but I just almost wonder if adding some running back depth and another guy, and you can have 4 backs active. Like that's not to say that Dameon Pierce doesn't continue. I think Dameon Pierce probably your kick returner moving forward, quite frankly, with what he did yesterday. But maybe that's kind of something that they need to look in as opposed to bringing in a guard. Because we can't even, this offensive line is so poor, we can't even like point to one guy and say, this is why. So maybe one guy is not going to figure that out. I actually like your idea of trying Titus at guard and trying Blake Fisher at right tackle and letting Blake Fisher go through the growing pains. I actually like it.
He's going to eventually play tackle for this team at some point. You might as well get him some opportunities.
And I'm on the chat. Shout out to everyone in the chat. It's there's predictability with Bobby Slowick. All they did though was run the ball well. And it seems like they run the ball really well on second down. And I don't know why. It's almost like because they run it poorly on first, the other team maybe is assuming that you're not going to run it on second. And there's like some sort of element of surprise there. But all that they can do is run the ball with Joe Mixon right now. So I don't know. I don't exactly know what they are supposed to do. I mean, it's confusing. It's really bad.
Stop running long developing plays and maybe mix it up a little bit on first down.
Yeah, and maybe on 3rd and 15, don't try to pick up 8 yards and stop the clock with Ka'imi Fairbairn.
I just don't know why and LaFleur said after the game that having the timeout changed the way he operated. So I don't know why you even put the ball in the air at that point.
All right, let's ask this real quick. This is kind of the elephant in the room. We haven't talked about this yet on SNL. What did you think of Romo and Nance?
Nance has slipped significantly from where he used to be. It's not Al Michaels bad, but there's not as much juice to Nance as there was just even a couple of years ago.
Nance has still got it, man.
No, he's still very good at what he does. It just doesn't feel like it's got the oomph to it that it used to have.
I feel like he's kind of defeated. I feel like he's like having to carry and babysit Tony Romo. He does a good job of mentioning the distance of the play, though.
Romo's terrible.
Yeah, he's not even trying at this point. And I think it's contagious with the rest of the broadcast, but he's not even trying. They need to take the marker away from him, to me. Like, take it away. Quit letting that. Quit. I mean, it's almost like when he gets that marker, it's almost like when I take my daughter to Chili's or something like that, and they ask if you want a kids menu with crowns. I mean, it's just there's no direction. John Madden rolls over in his grave every time Tony Romo tries to color on that damn TV screen.
Also, he thought the last catch by Romeo Doubs when D'Angelo Ross tried to defend him yet again was a fumble. Like, what are you doing, Tony? A fumble? Do you know the rules?
And then Nance just kind of moves forward. It's like, oh, all right. It's driving Nance crazy.
It had like, and I am not some just like, oh my God, Greg Olson's the best. There's a lot of guys that aren't as good as Greg Olson that are number one color guys. And Greg Olson's got to be sitting there like, oh, geez, here we go.
So here's my question too, as we kind of move on to Indianapolis. Does the outlook on the division change with the loss? In other words, do you look at this loss and say, okay, wasn't worried about the division, but now you have the Indianapolis Colts coming to town. They're one game behind you. Somehow they're 4-3. Does your outlook and your confidence level in the AFC South, does it change at all based on what you saw in Green Bay? And it's not necessarily that they lost to Green Bay, but the manner in which they lost to Green Bay and the fact that the concerns that we've had about this ball club for a long time, they remain intact regardless of how healthy that area of the team is, talking about the offensive line.
It does not change my divisional outlook, largely because I still don't believe in the teams that need to go try to catch the Texans. So did I feel like the upper tier of what the Texans can be lowered a little bit for me based off this performance? Yes, it did. But it still didn't lower to the point where I feel like these AFC South teams are going to catch up to the Texans. So the outlook on the division didn't change, but it's more about the three teams that are chasing you than the Texans, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's fair. The concern I have is that it's just the problem. I don't see the problem going away without a change, and I don't know that there's going to be a change, which might be a deeper rooted problem than just that. But as far as the division, I don't think the division is a threat. Maybe you kind of lower your expectations because I don't see the Texans against a good team being able to beat them with the offensive line performing like this. So maybe it channels your expectations, but I don't think it's so rock bottom that it's like, oh, damn, this is going to be a dogfight for the division. Like Jacksonville and Tennessee are still lost causes.
Correct. Neither of those teams scare me. And as long as the Colts want to keep running Anthony Richardson out there, they don't scare me either.
All right, this is where we Cody Stoots holds it down for me for a second, and we do a little Q&A with Cody Stoots. Start your question out with, ask Stoots. I'm going to go get the baby. I'm going to get it a nice little morning baba. Give me about 3 minutes of a pit stop, and I will be back. But it is time for the Q&A with Cody Stoots.
Okay, so Landry's going to go take care of the baby. So Streaks asks, Colts catch up to us if they beat us next week. So you'll have the same record as them. And then you'll have the same record as them, and then it'll be 1-1 on the head-to-head. So then it goes to the next tiebreaker, which I should know after all the tiebreaker crap we went through last year. But off the top of my head, games played within the division would be the next tiebreaker, and the Colts are 1-2 in the division. So you'd still be ahead of the Indianapolis Colts if they defeat the Texans next week. You would have the same record, but you would be the top team in the division still. So Colts win this week. They caught us. Yeah, I mean, they had the same record as you, but they're not going to beat the Texans this week. The Colts don't scare me. The Colts shouldn't scare you. The Colts should not scare you. This defense will annihilate the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts should not scare you. Now, is the offense going to be able to put points up? Good question. Good question. I guess we find that out this week. Don't know you'll get Newsome because Lassiter is your second cornerback, but Baker would be a good get. So Buda Baker, I believe, is what P. Heap is talking about. Safety from the Cardinals. You need the Cardinals to kind of keep, falling out of contention. They're 2-4. Wild cards out of the question, but the division's still, within reach for them. So I would think they're going to hang on to Buda Baker. for a while. And you're not trading for a corner. Look, Kamari Lassiter's going to be back here soon. They didn't put him on IR for the very reason that he's not going to miss 4 games. So Kamari Lassiter's going to be back soon. Okuda's soon, or Okuda's close to recovering from his injury. He'll be back off IR. So you're not going to trade for a cornerback. Stoots, Ross should be traded. No. You can't get anything for him. Is the baby what he calls it? LOL. I don't know. I don't know what that's a reference to. Any trades you think we should make? Who and what should we trade for? I trade for a guard if they're content with the tackle play. I trade for a guard, and I don't know. There's a safety that makes a difference. I mean, Jimmy Ward's eventually going to come back, so I don't know if there's a safety that makes a huge difference. But I think about an offensive lineman that you could just plop right in there at left guard and hopefully get a level of improvement there. And then let's see how things go the next couple weeks and see if you feel like you need to. They're going to have the Halloween game against the Jets, and then they'll have a couple of days off where they don't have to play a game, where they can kind of scour rosters, and then they make calls Monday morning ahead of the deadline that week. So they'll have a little extra time there with the mini bye after the Thursday night game. So Richardson's the worst QB in the division. Incorrect. Will Levis is the worst quarterback in the division, but Richardson's close. Richardson's close. This is the second season in the tenure of Bobby Slowick, D'Amico Ryans, and company. Relax. I feel like their success last year led to you wanting a little bit more out of the start to this season. And 5-2 is really good. Like, the Texans walked into week 7 of the NFL, number 2 in the AFC. They walked out of week 7 of the NFL with being number 2 in the AFC. Like, in the grand scheme of things, long-term, an NFC loss to the Packers doesn't affect you near as much as if you'd lost an AFC game. The Texans have the best conference record in football, which is a big tiebreaker when you look at tiebreakers down the road. Head-to-heads obviously matter the most, but you can still want more and still realize that this is a second-year head coach and a second-year play caller. You can still want more from what you've seen so far. You're back.
I'm back. How about that pit stop?
How about that?
30 minutes in the mic. We're on the whole milk now. And we got the diaper change. Hello. She's doing her thing, man. Reaction Monday. She's not too happy. She was pissed. But going back to what you were talking about with the guard, do you really want to trade for a guard, or would you rather trade for a running back?
I would trade for a guard.
Then what do you do with Kenyon Green? You just make him a backup?
Yeah. Just make him a backup. Hey, watch that guy. He knows how to play. Learn.
I don't know, man.
Hey, we haven't talked about this from the game. I have a question for you, though.
Okay.
When does Nico Autry's suspension end?
Oh, no. Yeah, he was a non-factor.
Badass my ass.
He was a non-factor. Tim Settle was good, though.
Tim Settle's significantly better than Eric Armstead. And that was who everybody wanted the Texans to end up with, was Armstead. And then they ended up with Settle. And Tim Settle's been a really nice rotational player, and he got the start yesterday and played really well.
Jay Mert asked the question. I think this is good. Will we be complaining if we lost this game due to defense? Maybe. I mean, you give us a reason to complain, we might find it, but I think it would have been more understandable. I think it would have been understandable to lose this game without your top 2 linebackers, without a starting safety, without your second best corner. It would have been a lot more acceptable than losing it, because not only was it the offense, but it was your coach at the end of the game with the execution gave you no chance to win the game. But I agree, like a loss when special teams and defense is flawless and you lose the game the way you did, maybe there would be a complaint, but
it wouldn't be as alarming of a complaint. Because the other thing is this: like if they lost this game due to defense, then you would say, well, they're going to get their linebackers back, they're going to get Lassiter back, and right now that's just an uphill battle. Unless you just think Nico Collins makes that much difference, then I think that I could have understood if the defense hadn't been elite. That was as good of a performance on defense as you could expect, even at full strength.
Look, the Packers have a solid defense. The Packers do not have an all-world defense that should have made you look like that. I mean, they're not the 85 freaking Bears, okay? They're not the 2001 Baltimore Ravens. Is that the right year? Have the right year on that? Like, they're fine. Rashawn Gary looked like Reggie White out there. Rashawn Gary's not even that good.
Black Eighth Element, were you expecting Autry to look like Reggie White day one? That's the question.
I was expecting more than one pressure. Like, I mean,
I was expecting him to look like Mario Edwards. How about that? I was expecting him to at least look like Mario Edwards Jr.
I was expecting more than one pressure from him.
Yeah, didn't get it. So we'll see how that goes. D'Amico Ryans talking today. Indianapolis Colts coming to town. Book your bet early on. Texans open as a 6-point favorite against the Indianapolis Colts. Book your bet.
Texans by 10. I got no belief in this Colts team.
None.
No belief.
None.
No belief. The Colts would be in the playoffs today if the playoffs started today. I know we still got
and I think Shane Steichen's done an underrated ass job. To be honest with you.
I mean they beat the Dolphins yesterday, so it's not like they squeaked past the Miami Dolphins. Their victories this year are the Dolphins and the Titans and the Bears, and then a surprising, I guess at the time, upset of the Steelers. But that was Flacco handling his business coming in for Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, but the Texans, they beat the Bills, but outside of that, I mean, you can kind of say similar stuff.
Sure. And the Texans have done no dominating of any team. They piled it on there against New England, but it was 14-7 at halftime, so that wasn't a domination.
We'll see how the whole thing goes. We're going to talk to D'Amico Ryans today. What do you want to hear from D'Amico Ryans?
I mean, I want to hear him rep the offensive line. That's not going to happen. I do feel like it can't be explained as business as usual. We're going to go to the drawing board for the offensive line. I do feel like there needs to be something about, something's got to be better there. Like, it can't be go back to the drawing board. Like, they need to rip the drawing board off the wall.
Yeah, I'm with you. We'll see how it goes. I'm not confident. I would take the Colts +6 right now. Just to be honest with you, I would take the Colts +6. I think Shane Steichen do a good job of picking on Ross. I think he's going to do a good job of the Petrie thing. I would take the Colts +6 right now if I had to book my bet. That's just kind of where I'm at.
You think Lassiter's out another week?
Yes.
Man.
Perhaps, yes.
Well, yeah, if Ross plays, even Anthony Richardson could find him.
Well, can he?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
Question.
All right. Appreciate everyone for coming through on SNL Reaction Monday. A lot of baby duty going on right now. Wife got called in early.
That's all right. We can call it 10 minutes early for baby duty.
Yeah, baby duty. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Frustrating loss for the Texans. The offensive line continues to be a problem, a lingering problem. Shout out to James Franco and Pineapple Express. Up next, got the Indianapolis Colts. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I think the thing that most people agree on, different levels of it, but there is a frustration level in Bobby Slowick in the game that he called. For Cody Stoots, I'm Landry Locker. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon.
Appreciate you.